It's now time for the Lee County Yellow Jackets Coaches Show with head coach Steve Bordeaux. We now take you to Keith Womack, your host for tonight's program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Yellow Jacket Coaches Show with Lee County head coach Steve Bordeaux. Of course, I'm your host, Keith Womack, and I'll be your host tonight as we discuss last week's game as well as our upcoming game this Friday night. Our Coaches Show each week are brought to you by some great sponsors, and we'd certainly like to thank Wilkinson Chevrolet, Domino's, Farm Bureau of Tramway, Sheriff Tracy Carter, Fix-It Plumbing, Jones Printing Company, and Brick Capital Video. These sponsors will bring you our Coaches Show every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock on 105.5 WFJA. Of course, we'll rebroadcast it again 1 hour prior to game time, 6 o'clock this Friday prior to our 7 o'clock kickoff versus Fuquay Farina. I'd like to also remind all of our listeners that the video will be posted on our Facebook webpage, and we'll have that on by Wednesday tomorrow at noon. And, of course, I look forward tonight to talking to head coach Steve Bordeaux as we talk some Yellow Jacket football. We're going to take a short break and hear from our great sponsors. We'll be right back with head coach Steve Bordeaux right after these messages.
Coaches Show sponsors: Wilkinson Chevrolet, Domino's, Farm Bureau Tramway, Sheriff Tracy Carter, Fix-It Plumbing, Jones Printing Company, Brick Capital Video.
And welcome back once again to the Lee County Yellow Jacket Coaches Show with head coach Steve Bordeaux. And as we said earlier, I'm your host, Keith Womack. And, of course, Coach, big victory last week. Jackets win 38-0 over South Granville. And that was a non-conference matchup that you guys scheduled last year. For the most part, Lee County controlled field position all night. They really won the line of scrimmage from the outset, scored 21 first-quarter points, kind of put this one away early, and held the Vikings for the whole game for 52 yards of total offense. And the Jackets, in return, rolled up 347. A lot of guys getting a lot of playing time. A lot of guys with some great effort.
Yeah, definitely. So what I was really proud to see is, I thought our special teams was really on point on Friday. And, that's something that we really take pride in, and it's something we didn't do as well the week before. So making a couple big special teams play, even, to really start off our scoring, landing blocks and recovered a punt to get us going and get some momentum. And then just really proud of how the defense flew around to the football. 52 yards of offense for that team. That was a really, really good job of guys being the spaces they needed to be.
Well, just for the record, Landon and his family go to the same church we do. So Sunday, a week ago, I gave him a hard time about not being able to get that one in on Northwood. So he redeemed himself, is what he told me. So it was good to see him get that score. Will Patterson, 14 of 20, passing the ball, 200 yards right on the money. B.J. Brown, 73 yards, 13 carries. I thought the offense played very well, but when you've got a defense that holds a team to 52 yards, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah, definitely. We're getting off the field on third down, and it's giving us more possessions and good field position. It put the offense in good situations, and Will did a really good job of making the plays that were there. Running backs did a solid job of taking the blocks that the OL was giving us. We just got to continue to get better each week up front and continue to get better offensively, really right across the whole field. But offensively, we got to continue to tighten things up.
Well, speaking of better, Coach, weather.
Yeah,
it's much better.
Much.
Friday night as opposed to back in February or March when we played South Granville before.
Yeah, the field looked a whole lot better. They did a really good job of getting that thing back, and it couldn't ask for better conditions. Even some people told me after the game it was a little bit cool. It's almost hoodie weather, so it's getting there.
In fact, I'll try to give Terry at Brick Capital Video a picture of an in-game picture last year because you guys were so muddy. Yeah. I think it'd be fun for the fans to see it, at least on the video.
Definitely.
But, Coach, we talked about Will Patterson, 14 of 20, 200 yards. We talked about B.J. Brown's 13 carries, 73 yards. Also, Kendall Morris, ran the ball well. 2 carries for 47 yards. Justin Thompson, 3 carries for 14. Will Patterson, I think the first time this year in positive numbers rushing the ball, and actually lost about 15 yards on a bad snap, which wasn't his fault. Will Patterson, 4 carries, 11 yards. T.J. Johnson, 2 carries, 2 yards. But, Coach, I like seeing that because that means he can concentrate on defense. Same thing with JoJo Jennings. I love when those guys run the ball, but when they don't run the ball, it leaves them fresh on the defensive side.
Yeah, definitely so. When TJ and JoJo are fresh and playing defense, we're pretty good on defense. You know, Will did have a really good run. He scrambled and broke the pocket once. Like I said, he lost a few yards on something that wasn't his fault. And the same thing for Justin. You know, Justin had a really big run later in the game, and it come back on a hole. But, both of those guys had a few more yards than the stats showed.
Yeah, I thought they played exceptionally well. Tyreek McKendall, speaking of well, 5 catches, 49 yards. And they were in kind of that crucial time when the game really hadn't been decided at that point. I think the first 5 passes were thrown to McKendall, so he did a great job. Eli Garrison, we'll talk about his performance in just a moment, but Eli Garrison, 3 catches, 56 yards. Logan Walker, Kenyon Palmer, B.J. Brown, Aaron Wallace, Jalen Person, all catching balls as well. Jackets total of 200 yards. Again, so many accolades to throw out, but as you know, we have one of our great sponsors, the Norman Financial Group, allows John and I to pick who we think are our offensive and defensive players of the game. And so on behalf of the Norman Financial Group, I'll go ahead and start with our offensive player of the game, Coach. We picked this week Eli Garrison.
Yeah, so Eli did an outstanding job, and sometimes his stats go without notice, but this was a game where his stats popped. He had a couple big catches, and he does the dirty work making these blocks spring. Eli had a great game. I was, as you called out all those stats, what I really like, and I keep talking about this, every time we can have that period be a really long time, where there's 6, 7, 8, I think 10 different guys between receiving and rushing the ball or touching it, that makes it really tough on the defense.
Well, Coach, I call your receiving core at least the top 3, 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
And 1 is your speed, 2 is your power, and 3 is your heart and soul. That's just the way I look at it when I see these guys. Eli Garrison always plays hard.
Definitely.
So congratulations to Eli Garrison for being our Norman Financial Group Offensive Player of the game. Now, Coach, we're going to turn our focus to the defense. Our Norman Financial Group Defensive Player of the game, a name that we hadn't called a lot, but I thought had a great game Friday night, and that was Ross Johnson.
Yeah, Ross is in the backfield over and over and over, and the offense that South Granville runs, if Ross doesn't do his job, they're gonna rush for yards. They're leaving him unblocked and making him play discipline and tackle the fullback over and over and over, and he did a really good job of it. He had 5 or 6 tackles for loss. He had a sack the one time they tried to roll out. Same thing the week before. Ross had a sack and a half. Ross is playing really, really well. We got to continue to get him, to continue doing that. He's doing a good job right now.
Well, Coach, on the defensive side, out of 56 plays for the Vikings on Friday night, 21 of those, because of that defense, were tackles for loss.
Yeah, that's a pretty good. That's a stat I like. I like to hear that. If we're putting teams behind the chains, we got a good chance to get them off the field on 3rd down, and obviously flip it back to our offense.
Well, Coach, speaking of great sponsors, we also have another one, and that would be Wilkinson Chevrolet here in Sanford, and they sponsor our player of the game, which the coaching staff takes a look at, and it's kind of for overall play. Another name we haven't heard a lot of as far as the accolades, but one that's certainly well-deserved. I'm very proud of him. I happen to know this young fella. Our player of the game from Wilkinson Chevrolet was?
Yeah, overall player of the game was Noah Johns. Noah's a guy, I'll say similar to Eli, that kind of does the dirty work that you might not recognize unless you really watch football and understand what's going on. But just like Ross, we put him in a situation where if he didn't do his job, they were going to be successful. And obviously with all those tackles for loss and all the limited amount of yards they had, Noah did his job. He had about 10 tackles overall, and the other ones he's turning everything back into TJ, JoJo, Landon, all those guys running to the football. Noah really made that defense set. So he did a really good job.
And that hair.
Yeah, he got the flow going. Done a little bit of stuff on special teams too. Noah's really, a great kid. Does it in the classroom. perfect example of what a Jacket football player is.
And he has a very sweet girlfriend, one of my daughter's friends.
Oh,
so
okay. I didn't,
give him credit for that. Of course, a big victory, as we said, Coach, last week. Can't deny a 38-0 victory. Jackets go to 2-1 on the season, so congratulations on that. And with that being said, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back and talk about Friday night's contest with Fuquay Arena. We'll get a little insight from Coach. All that and much, much more when we return.
Coaches Show sponsors: Wilkinson Chevrolet, Domino's, Farm Bureau Tramway, Sheriff Tracy Carter, Fix-It Plumbing, Jones Printing Company, Brick Capital Video.
And welcome back once again to the Lee County Yellow Jacket Coaches Show here on 105.5 WFJA. And Coach, big victory. Again, as we said, the Jackets now 2-1 on the season after a 38-0 victory over South Granville. We would like to go through some of the other scores from our conference foes. Of course, South Johnston on Thursday night last week defeated Southern Lee 47-13. Pinecrest 16-7 over Middle Creek. Of course, Coach Jacobson now at Middle Creek, and Pinecrest one of our conference opponents. Yep. From what I understand, Pinecrest scored all of their points defensively in that game. So a big win for Pinecrest and a disappointing loss there for Middle Creek. Southview with a 20-0 victory over Hope County. Hope County was, I think, 2-3-0 up to that point, so they had been playing well. Scotland County, a little redemption, 40-6 over Cary. Cardinal Gibbons, a kind of a surprise. Cardinal Gibbons goes and plays Richmond County, defeats them 30-22. And then Western Harnett with another big victory. I think some good things finally happening down at Western Harnett over Union Pines, 20-16. And, of course, this week, along with Lee County at Fuquay, which you can hear right here on 105.5 WFJA. Also, Fairmont will be at Southern Lee here in Sanford. Jack Britt will be at Scotland County. Grimsley will be at Pinecrest.
That's a big
Pinecrest is playing a pretty tough little schedule. Hope County will be at 71st. St. Paul's at Union Pines, and Southview at Richmond. And, Coach, with all that being said, there's a lot of stuff going on, and one of the things we like to do is a little segment called Getting to Know the Yellow Jackets. Tonight, we're going to talk about the defensive secondary. And, Coach, you've got quite a few players. None of the big names that we're calling out all the time, but just a lot of blue-collar workers that get it done back there in the secondary.
Yeah, so our secondary really starts with three seniors. Kenyon Palmer, Aaron Wallace, and Tyreek McKendall are three of our four guys in the back end. And Mark Schlesinger is another one of our safeties. Logan Walker and Isaiah Peoples are guys that jump in there and really do a good job when it's needed. Justin Thompson's another one. So we have a good group. Coach Herron, really has those boys playing well. And, we haven't had many teams try to pass the ball on us yet. So our passing yards average is really down. So hopefully we can keep that rolling this week.
Well, Coach, we certainly appreciate everything they do. Oh, yeah. And, Coach, thanks for introducing us to another segment of Getting to Know the Yellow Jackets, and that is your Yellow Jacket secondary. Coach, start looking ahead to this Friday night's opponent, which will be Fuquay Arena. Many of you have been down there. We used to be in their conference several years ago. May not notice the school. I understand they built a brand new school on the same campus, but that is where the football game will be played. Just to give you a little insight on Fuquay Arena, I believe Lee County is ranked right now in the triangle as the number 16 team. Fuquay Arena has now moved up in the top 20 to number 19, currently at 3-0 on the season. And so it's going to be a very formidable opponent. So, Coach, what do you know, or what can you tell us about what you know about Fuquay Arena?
Yeah. So first off, they're gonna have a huge crowd. Last week, you can see it on film. They had probably upwards of 3,000 people. Holly Springs and them, really had that place packed out. It's only their second game in their new stadium, their newly renovated stadium. I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's a very nice looking place. And Coach Hall has been there for several years. Since my time coaching in Wake County. He was a coordinator at one point and became the head coach there. So they've had some consistency on staff and have really been one of the top programs in Wake County over the last 15 or so years. Offensively, they're a grind-it type team. They're going to try to wear you out on offense, try to wear you out on defense, continue to make you make tackles over and over, get 2, 3, 4-yard carries early, and try to break big gains late. And they have a couple really good football players on both sides of the ball.
So, Coach, in all honesty, a lot more talent, but we're going to see a lot of similar things that we saw last week against South Graham.
Yeah, so they're going to try to put us in situations to play option. They're going to try to put us in situations to take on running backs coming out the backfield. They have a quarterback that can throw the ball when needed. They honestly prefer not to. I think Coach would tell you if he could run the ball every play and get 4 yards a carry, he's probably going to take it. And on defense, they're going to try to bring some heat and put some pressure and make us feel uncomfortable.
Well, I would like to remind everybody, kickoff is going to be 7 o'clock this week. Even though now getting to Fuquay-Varina High School, you can take the 540 bypass, but Raleigh is still Raleigh. There's a lot of traffic, so make sure you leave a little early. Maybe go by and grab you something to eat before you head up that way, but make sure you get there early. Coach, can you tell us any information about game time tickets for the game Friday against Fuquay-Varina?
Yeah, so just like they're going to use GoFan. The ticket link's already available. If you go to GoFan and type in Lee County, the ticket for Friday will be there. And so will our ticket for Thursday night JV game. We're going to play at home, and Orange County is going to play us on Thursday. So both of those games, we hope to have a really big crowd because Orange County travels really well. And they're going to have a big crowd on Thursday, and Fuquay is going to have a really big crowd on Friday, with them being 3-0, and obviously, hopefully, with us coming to town and not being just being a short distance, that we can pack one out too.
Well, Coach, how are the Yellow Jackets physically and mentally? It looks like they obviously got over the second week loss to Glenn, which was a very good team, but then bouncing back with a big victory last week. Now at 2-1. How's our team doing?
Yeah, so it's going to be a really big test for us to see. I think Fuquay is a very, very good opponent, and it's going to make us play really good football. If we aren't hitting on all cylinders, Fuquay is a team that can give us all we want and more. While it has been a couple weeks ago, we're going to keep reminding the boys of any situations that we can that put us in a bad situation on that Friday we got beat, to make sure that doesn't happen again. We're trying to learn from those mistakes and make sure we don't repeat them.
Any injuries to report?
No, we're doing decent so far. Hopefully we can roll through this week. We had a really good day of practice today. We got one more good, hard, padded practice, and then we'll get ready for Friday.
And, Coach, just so everybody will know, too, last week we weren't able to have a JV game because of everything going on. But this week, Thursday night at home, JVs will be playing. Yeah. You want to tell us a little bit about that real quick?
The JV group, this JV group's a really exciting group. We have a really big freshman class. It's 30-plus kids. Right on JV, we have nearly 60 kids altogether. They're currently 2-0. Like I said, last week we weren't able to play. We're still looking for somebody to make up a game throughout the year. But Orange County is coming in either 2 or 3-0, depending on what they just did. They had a makeup game. So depending on what they're doing, they could be 3-0 right now coming in. So it'll be a really good opponent for our JV to have. And they're very similar to Fuquay. They're going to try to pound the ball on us. Coach Smith, I've coached with Coach Smith and a lot of those guys at Orange in the past. And, it's going to be a fun Thursday to get a chance to compete against those guys because they know what we're about. We're going to be a hard-working team. They're a very hard-working team. It's going to be a fun Thursday.
Yeah, and while we've got a second, might as well throw a couple of names out there from the JV squad, some guys that have really been standouts.
Yeah, definitely. So, I guess let's start with a running back. Running back's done a really good job. Isaiah Peoples has been bouncing between JV and varsity. He's been one of the guys. Isaiah McKendall's playing some linebacker. Sam Benton and Anthony Battle are two guys that are getting it done on both sides of the ball. Kalen Brown's another sophomore at quarterback. Jaden Hill and Jack Martin are doing a really good job. JoJo Douglas is another one. And our defensive line is a group that I'm really excited about on the JV guys. Ronnie Hooker, we have Nori Ferris, Trey Chubbs, and Julian Best. And linebacker group, Auburn Griffin is leading that group. It's just a really fun group. Jermaine's another kid in the secondary. It's a fun group. I'm really, as you can tell, I'm excited.
We can't wait to watch them play. Obviously, there'll be varsity jackets before we all know it. We're going to take one final break here to thank our sponsors for everything they do to help support Yellow Jacket football. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with head coach Steve Bordeaux right after these messages.
Coaches Show sponsors: Wilkinson Chevrolet, Domino's, Farm Bureau Tramway, Sheriff Tracy Carter, Fix-It Plumbing, Jones Printing Company, Brick Capital Video.
And welcome back one final time to the Yellow Jacket Coaches Show with head coach Steve Bordeaux. First of all, thank you, Coach, for coming in tonight.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me. Look forward to seeing everybody on Friday night.
Well, we would like to remind you to join us right here on 105.5 WFJA on Friday night at 6 o'clock prior to our game time, which is at 7 o'clock this week. Our Coaches Show will be posted on the WFJA website and the WFJA Facebook page each Wednesday by noon, and we invite you to watch and share this week's show. We hope that you will take these opportunities to join us this season on the only radio station to bring you Yellow Jacket football live as it happens. We'd also like to remind you to check out the WFJA website, go to sports, then high school football, and you'll see all the information you need from both Yellow Jacket and Cavalier football the day after the games. The conference standings, power rankings, schedules for all the teams in the Sand Hills 3A, 4A conference, up-to-date season stats, and much, much more. So make sure you go visit that website. We'd like to wish the best of luck to Lee County as they face the Fuquay Arena High School this Friday night. We thank all of our sponsors for bringing you our show tonight: Wilkinson Chevrolet, Domino's, Farm Bureau of Tramway, Sheriff Tracy Carter, Jones Printing Company, Fix-It Plumbing, and Brick Capital Video. And we thank you for listening to WFJA Sports. Let's get ready, Jacket fans. It's time once again for Yellow Jacket football.
You've been listening to the Lee County Yellow Jackets Coaches Show with head coach Steve Bordeaux and show host Keith Womack. On behalf of all the Coaches Show sponsors, we thank you for listening to tonight's program. This has been a production of WFJA and WWGP Sports.